And welcome to Barbatus Catholic Podcast, a show where three Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. We are your hosts,
Gustavo,
Ivan,
and Walter. And today we are going to talk about becoming a reservoir. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Tacos, tacos, tacos. Now that I have your attention, did you know that hashtag Taco Tuesdays doesn't just have to be on Tuesdays? You can make it hashtag taco every day with Don Taco mobile taco stand. If you're looking for the best tacos in the valley, look no further. Let Don Taco cater your next event. Whether it's a birthday party, baby shower, quinceañera, or a wedding, they will bring you the most delicious tacos with the freshest of ingredients. Do you like tacos de birria? They got them. Tacos de asada? Treat yourself. Tripas, cabeza? Guys, they got them. Book them today. Go to dontacocatering.com for more information. You can also follow them on Instagram at DonTacoMTS. And now to the show.
We had a conversation earlier this week about Catholic jokes. Why did it come up? Because, we were talking about like breaking up with spiritual directors.
Oh, yeah.
And those cliches, like, it's not you, it's me kind of situation. And then it was the joke about Pope Benedict XVI stepping down that Jim Gaffigan has.
Yeah.
And that's when we found out that Ivan doesn't find Jim Gaffigan funny. And
It only broke your heart a little bit.
I mean, it was kind of our first fight as
No. The first fight was when we found out that you hadn't watched Lord of the Rings.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
This is our second.
Official fight.
Ándele. Ándele.
I stand corrected.
Para que veas lo que se siente.
I did watch the Two Towers, and then we talked about it.
Yeah, but that was our first fight. I just want
I
to clarify.
took copious notes of it, but don't like deflect the attention
conversation.
From
I'm sorry.
He's
Ivan
like, you're supposed to
doesn't-
be on my side.
I know. Seriously.
We talked about this, Gustavo.
Yeah. Gee, like hanging up on me. So Ivan is dead inside because he doesn't think that Jim Gaffigan is funny.
Well, to Ivan's defense, according to Jim Gaffigan, the Pope doesn't think Jim Gaffigan is funny either. So
That is true.
Wait, really?
he said it when
You
one of his
didn't watch the
specials.
video that I sent.
Yeah, you
No,
didn't
I
watch
didn't.
it.
¿Ya ves cómo eres?
Culero soy.
Oh my goodness.
I
That's
saw
how
Jim
it-
Gaffigan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like
Some funny stuff. In there.
No,
I like
I'll
Jim
watch it.
Gaffigan. I
I'll
really
watch
like Jim Gaffigan.
that guy, the Mackey. What's his name? Joe Mackey.
Joe Mackey, yeah.
He's Catholic, right?
I have no idea.
I think he is because I ever since you sent that link, I watched like this other videos that show up on my recommended, and what's his name? Something Moral. This other very dry deadpan comedian was roasting him, and I think they have a Sam Morrill, I think it's his name. They have a podcast together,
Oh, yeah?
and Sam Morrill was like roasting him about being Catholic.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I don't know.
Joe
but
Mackey's pretty funny, too.
he has like some grim, dark
Uh-huh.
jokes, but still funny.
To my defense, I haven't seen a ton of Jim Gaffigan material, but some of the stuff I think. Okay, so I don't think I've ever like sat down and completely watched like one of his specials or one of his like complete stand-up routines.
Okay.
I always see like little fragments of it,
Yeah, the little snippets.
and what I've seen, it's either I'm guessing it goes off another joke that he just told, or I don't know. Like I just didn't really find it super funny.
You don't have the context.
Exactly. So I feel like since you watched Lord of the Rings, I have to like sit down and watch a Jim Gaffigan special. I think it's only right.
Yeah,
I'll tell you
I
which
think
one.
so.
I think Cinco you will appreciate
Okay. I'll
because
watch it.
he talks about being the dad.
Is it on YouTube?
It's on Netflix, I think.
Okay.
Cinco
I
is
think-
on Netflix.
I think a bunch of his are on Amazon Prime, too.
Okay.
Right.
Good to know.
I think the last two were
Mhm.
on Amazon Prime. Noble Ape and the Pale
Tourist.
Tourist.
I didn't get that one.
See? fans.
I didn't get that one.
It was not that
Tourist,
funny.
that wasn't-
Noble Ape was really funny,
Mhm.
and yeah, you need to watch maybe the one that he performed for the Pope,
Okay.
which
It's a shorter set, but it's pretty good.
yes, funny anecdote when Deanna and I were newlyweds and didn't have children. Jim Gaffigan was having 2 shows at Talking Stick in Phoenix. Actually, when he was working that material for where he mentioned the like, anybody Pope joke,
Mhm.
and just last minute we bought tickets at StubHub, and we're like, "Do you want to watch Jim Gaffigan tonight?" Like an hour before
Oh
the
wow,
show,
really?
bought tickets, went to Talking Stick.
That's
so
awesome.
funny.
We saw at the first show we saw Father Cello Ramirez and Father Keith Kenny were coming out of the first show. It was like shout out to Father Keith Kenny and Father Cello Ramirez. I don't know. They probably don't listen to the podcast.
I know Father Cello does not listen to the podcast because he told me that he does not like podcasts.
There you go.
That is true.
But still,
told
shout
me
out to Father Cello. We love you.
that. I'm gonna text him and tell him like
Somebody that knows Father Cello that listens to the podcast, tell him that he would
yeah.
have.
Anybody in Williams, Arizona that listens to the podcast, let us know that you listen to.
You know that I've actually never been to a live like stand up.
Me either.
show.
And
I would love to go.
Yeah, we gotta go.
It's a good time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet.
I'm very nervous every time. Like I don't want to be in the front line in the very front seats.
Actually, I lied. I have been to one, but what was his name? It was something Griffin. John actually he won like these tickets on the radio, and he's like, "You want to go with me?" It's like, "Sure."
Fuel.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that I think that, but it was like this comedy
Oh, the
place
one in
downtown.
oh, okay. I thought you were.
Yeah,
gonna say,
it was
like, High
funny.
Street.
It was pretty funny. But I don't remember his name. But I think that's the only one I've ever
The only
seen.
one I've been to is when we went on the cruise.
Okay. Those cruise guys are really funny.
Some of them
They
are
have to
pretty
be
funny.
because they have like captive.
it was
audience.
pretty refreshing because I mean we went on our honeymoon, we went on a cruise and yes, we were the ones in the front and we got roasted by the comic.
You get picked on.
Yeah. And then a couple of years ago when we went on a cruise with the girls, it's really fun that they have like kid friendly shows because you can take the kids. And my girls are like really into stand up right now. They're like discovering stand up.
Wait, who do they like?
I mean, just like comics from like America's Got Talent and stuff like that.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So they just watch little clips on YouTube or
So
whatever.
clean comics, basically.
Clean comics, yeah. But when they saw this one comic like on the cruise, and it was like super clean, and he had some like off the
Risque
cuff
stuff.
jokes that it kind of flew over their head,
Mm.
but they were dying. They were dying laughing. And they wanted to like, Dad, can we come back to the 11 o'clock show? It's like, no, baby, that's not for you. I don't think I can
That's
listen to
for
that.
adults When you're 21, of course.
Yeah.
Oliver is starting to like make up his own jokes, and it's they're mostly about poop, but still pretty funny.
Poop is funny.
Well, you're always gonna get you're always gonna get a laugh with poop.
Yes.
Wait, so is Jim Gaffigan your favorite comedian?
He's up there,
Mm.
top 5 for sure. I like Dimitri Martin quite a bit. I mean, if we're talking about like newer comics, there's a bunch of new comics that are doing a whole bunch of really funny stuff. But like Robin Williams, Eddie Murphy, we had this
Yeah.
conversation. But I didn't like Carlin.
You
He
We are the
blasted
same
he
person.
blasted the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I
a bunch of comics that blasted the Catholic
I
Church.
know,
I mean, I'm
but
saying that
He was Catholic and
he was
specifically
great at what he did. I mean, that aside,
yes.
he was great at what he did when he was not obviously blasting the Catholic
His
Church.
bit on the 10 Commandments is very funny, but very, very
Yeah, I mean,
offensive.
a bunch of comics that's what they make their life on, right?
Yeah.
Being offensive. But that aside, I think Carlin is one of the greats for the way that he did what he did, the way he did with words is like pretty amazing.
And lately, Dave Chappelle, because he's
Dave
just
Chappelle's not
sticking
funny,
it to
though.
the men.
Oh,
But
my
you know,
gosh, I love Dave Chappelle.
Well, but no, I like him too, but he's not particularly funny. He's controversial, and he
Yeah.
has a couple of zingers, and the Chappelle show was like a staple. But like his stand up, I mean, I don't laugh out loud. Like with Gaffigan, I've laughed out loud. You know,
I laugh out loud. With
you know.
Chappelle.
So, certain things.
It's like I don't know what joke they were offended by because I have too many of them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, what is not a joke is what we're talking about today. And oh my God, I was like, how am I going to link?
We gotta have a bell or something
I
when he does like a good segue. We just like go like
I know.
ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
And then when it doesn't go, like, wah, wah, wah.
You cannot be After Effects when you're
Yeah.
editing the episode. Today we wanted to talk about, after 10 minutes of talking about stand-up,
After 10 minutes of talking about Jim Gaffigan.
Jim Gaffigan, yes. The name of the episode is Be a Reservoir. And this all comes from a quote from Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, which he wrote about like 43 sermons on the Song of Songs, which apparently is like one of the most commented books of the Bible. And I haven't read it, to be honest with you, because you know the language of the Song of Songs it's a erotic poem.
Mm-hmm,
It's like, what is it doing in the middle of the Bible?
And it's smack in the middle of the Bible, by the way.
And but Saint Bernard of Clairvaux interprets the Song of Songs in reference to the law between God and the soul, and basically the fact that God is deeply in love with us and wills our love in return. So there's like this analogy of the bride and the bridegroom that is expressed in the book, and like the fact of the intimacy of love in the book.
It's pretty intense.
Yes.
I'm doing the Bible in
Bible
a
in a
year
year.
with Father Mike, and he had to big disclaimer on that episode. It's like, if you have little ones, we're just gonna get into some deep stuff here.
Put your headphones on
Yeah.
for this one. So
Beautiful though.
I bet.
Mhm.
Yes. There was like one point in time that my mom was telling my dad how she was going to start calling him like her little dear or whatever. I'm like, I don't want to hear it. Because that's the last thing that you want from your parents. I cannot wait to embarrass my children like that.
Totally.
The quote says, "The man who is wise, therefore, will see his life as more like a reservoir than a canal. The canal simultaneously pours out what it receives. The reservoir retains the water till it's filled, then discharges the overflow without loss to itself. Today, there are many in the church who act like canals. The reservoirs are far too rare. You too must learn to await this fullness before pouring out your gifts. Do not try to be more generous than God." So there are a lot of things to unpack. So why don't we start with the man who is wise? So in these 5 words, Saint Bernard pretty much is summing up the objective of like what will follow.
Kind of putting people on the spot, right?
Yeah, like you don't want.
If you are wise,
yeah, you should listen to this. You don't want to be a fool because he pities the fool. This is like a mashup.
pitiful.
Mashup between Saint Bernard of Clairvaux and Mr. T. Pay attention to what he's going to say next. Then he talks about the difference between the reservoir and the canal. Like I think that this is the first time in my life that I lived in a city that has canals.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Phoenix, Arizona, in Arizona in general, we have like, I didn't know this. It's just like a fun fact that there's like 131 mile long network of canals that help distribute water in the Phoenix metro area.
And it comes from the Colorado River, by the way.
Right. Yeah, so this, like some people is like, how are there so many golf courses in Arizona?
That's why we bring that's why we bring the water from the Colorado River
Exactly.
to water our golf courses, people, which I don't use.
Right. It's like as you go to California, it's like there's always a drought for whatever reason in California. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah,
They get the tail end of the Colorado River.
exactly.
I know.
So the difference between the reservoir and the canal, the reservoir first gets filled up, and once filled, whatever lands on it overflows and doesn't lose anything. Um, and I don't know why I got this image of like the champagne tower
Mm-hmm.
where you have all of the glasses and you're like pouring on the top, and then it's like the overflow. It's like filling up
Filling the other
all
ones.
of the other
Mhm.
glasses. I don't know. Just think about it. I don't have a better analogy. for a
I mean,
reservoir.
the reservoir itself that's the perfect analogy, right? But because how it pictures it, it's you don't lose anything, and you're still giving water, essentially.
Right.
And the canal, no, the canal is just like everything passes through,
Yeah,
and you don't keep anything for yourself. You're just like
You're like
passing
a
it through.
conduit.
The conduit,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, it says that the reservoirs are far too rare. I don't know. Saint Bernard was writing this in the 12th century, but I think this could be applicable to our days.
Mhm.
The thing that we need to learn, or the next one that comes as a not as a surprise, but something to be pondered. Learn to await this fullness before pouring out your gifts. We have said it before, and we will say it again. You cannot give what you don't have, and particularly when we are talking to fathers in this particular episode or in the podcast, as our mission to talk to men, to other men, but it applies to everybody basically. If you're going to be a father, husband, son, friend, brother, parishioner, employee, if you are not full, how are you going to be able to serve others if you don't take care of yourself first? Because this is kind of a weird scenario where we usually talk about like selflessness and pouring ourselves out, but this is one of the things that we need to take care of ourselves first before we need to receive in order to give, you know?
Correct.
So what exactly are we dealing with when we talk about like these bodies of water?
Mm-hmm. I think it's similar to how you get that notice on the airplane, right? When you're first going to take off, that tells you that in a case of an emergency, put your mask on first.
The oxygen
mask,
Mhm.
because you can't help anybody else if you're passed out. That's kind of what came to mind when I read this outline.
Ivan, were you in that men's conference with do you remember there was this sister that had that talk? It's kind of like that. I don't know why I have this vague memory that we were together in that men's conference, but she basically said that what Gustavo just said, that we need like that this water, this oxygen that we're talking about, we can equate that to grace.
Mm.
Correct.
I don't think I was there.
Oh,
Mm-mm.
It was another Ivan. It was another bearded friend that you have.
that probably likes Jim Gaffigan. Terco, necio, no quiere dejar ir las cosas. Anyways, so water is life-giving, right? So in the same way that we need water to live, we need sanctifying grace for our sustenance, for our soul. In basically what we are aiming to do is filling our cup so that grace that overflows goes into our wives and our children and our parish and our workplace and the world eventually.
I kind of feel it when I come back from adoration a little bit.
That's where you fill your cup.
Yeah. Because I come back home and I wake up. I'm not a morning person, like at all. And I have a 6 o'clock in the morning adoration slot precisely to fix that.
Okay.
And I gotta peel myself out of bed, and I really groggy. I go there really groggy, but once I'm there, I'm really good. When I come back home, it's like I did an hour of cardio or something because I'm really energized and pumped to take on the day. Versus other days that you just like wake up like, and especially working from home is like you got a little bit leeway of how early or how late you can wake up and still make it to bed to the
To
front of
work.
the computer.
Yeah.
Such a long commute.
Oh my gosh.
Había un tráfico.
Un tráfico de la fregada en el pasillo. Cállate la boca. So yeah, I definitely feel that difference when I get home from adoration. That I don't have that, like, I don't know. You know what I mean? That lag that you get sometimes when you're just like dragging on in the week a little bit.
And I think it's also good to recognize when we don't necessarily feel that our cup is full or that we're overflowing with graces. Because sometimes that's the case.
Correct. More than none, actually.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right?
I feel like, I mean, in my experience, I feel like sometimes I feel like, man, I'm just not in it, or I really need to go to confession. And I know it because either my fuse is so short, I get really angry, whatever the case may be. So it's also good to recognize those times where it's like, all right, I don't have the graces today, and I need to do something about it. Because like you can't. You said like you can't give what you don't have, and sometimes it's so hard to recognize. Like, well, if I don't have it, what do I need to do
to get it?
To get it.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to answer those questions. Like, man, I really don't want to do this, or I don't want to have these tough conversations, or I don't want to, tell this to my wife or to my boss or whatever the case may be,
Yeah, it's something that you're running on empty has a whole different meaning for us.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about the physical strength and your stamina. It's like the spiritual really fuels my energy and my mood throughout the day.
Yeah.
And you notice that immediately. Some people have it with exercise. When they don't work out, they get like all like angry and testy, and it's like that with prayer. If I don't have like a good, strong, solid morning prayer, or like a good evening prayer or whatever, you start feeling it. It starts the cup definitely starts losing
to lower. Yeah, for me, it's like after coming back from confession, like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm like way more patient with the kids. It's easier.
That's the patience
you get you go fill up basically.
Yeah, exactly. And we're coming out from mass,
right? There's times that the kids are like pale at mass, but yes, ideally, like after you receive it, there's like those graces on Sundays and whatnot. But definitely those are like perfectly good examples of kind of like a gut check for everybody that was listening. It's like, are we living sacramentally?
Correct.
Right? If we say that our cup it needs to be full of grace, do we have a good relationship with God? Do we have a good prayer life? Is there something that we could be doing better, like Ivan said? So I think this like hit home with me because I switched spiritual directors recently, and one of the first things that my new spiritual director asked me was, "Are you working from home?" And I said, "Yes." "Since when?" Like, well, year and a half. And then he asked me, how long was your commute? I'm like, 40 minutes each way. And we were discussing my prayer life, which is basically non-existent, uh, or like very like spotty, basically. And uh, the next thing that he said was like, "You're trying to tell me that you now have like an hour and 20 minutes more time in your day, and yet you cannot find time to pray." And I was like,
When you put it that way.
"Why? Yes, exactly." Well, when you say it like that, it's always going to sound bad.
But look at it from my perspective. I mean, no. No, you're right.
You can make a lot of excuses, right? Like, well,
Yeah.
the kids wake up really
and this
early.
and that,
But then, like you said,
chores,
like
whatever.
you have to set yourself up from success. Atomic habits, right? If you want to have a good morning, we'll go to bed
A little
a little bit
earlier.
earlier. And if your kids wake up at 5:30 in the morning, try to wake up at 4:35 or 5 a.m. Go to bed at 9, so you have like at least a good amount of sleep. And start your routine, your prayer routine, or your exercise, or whatever you need to do in order to like be at your best
Mhm.
in the morning, and make it remove as many obstacles as possible in order for you to stick the landing on whatever habits you're trying to build up. Which I think it all comes down to discipline, and it all comes down to consistency. And I think that most of the things that we struggle with is that
Mhm.
particular thing. It's not motivation. It's not necessarily lack of, because we know what we want to do. We want to be saints. We want to uh, be healthier. We want to be good parents, good husbands, good friends. It's just getting the reps in. It's a matter of like showing up, right?
But it's a matter of establishing good habits too. Oh, you're never going to do it if you don't practice it.
Right. Sometimes it's just about checking the box, right?
Mhm.
Whether you feel
Mhm.
like it or not.
Exactly.
I thought that it was very interesting that James Clear mentions that all three of us in at one point or another have read Atomic. I think you have read Atomic Habits, or no?
I haven't.
Maybe
No.
Ivan and I have talked about it.
Mhm.
But basically, having like a poster wall of like all of the days that you might get to live based on like life expectancy in the U.S. and all of those days that you don't do the things that you said you were going to do, or like wasted opportunities to like cast a vote towards the person that you want to become.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if you say that we want to become saints, and we say that we love Christ and that we want to have a relationship with Him, prayer is the way
Yeah.
Mhm.
to talk to God.
Mhm.
So imagine that you go to confession and you just ask for forgiveness, but you are asking for forgiveness to a person that you don't talk on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
It's like if you apologize,
Well, you're
It-
apologizing to make yourself feel better.
or I'll do you one better. It's like you don't talk to your wife all day, but then at night you apologize for the things you did wrong.
Mhm.
Like that feels awkward, right?
Yeah.
Didn't have that communication in day to day, and then go and apologize. It's like, well, we don't have that relationship.
Mhm.
So, again, this is me treating the podcast as my own like therapy session. But moving on to the next part of the quote: "Do not try to be more generous than God." And I think we talked about being selfless and aiming towards that, emptying ourselves, just like Jesus did on the cross. Especially for those of us who are married, and we that are called to love our wives like Christ loves the church, in that emptying of ourselves. It's all good. However, we also need to remember that Jesus woke up early and went to a deserted place regularly to talk to the Father. So we should also imitate Jesus in that aspect. Um, that we cannot empty ourselves like he did before being filled up, and he was in that uh, constant communion with the Father.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so coming to the point where God cannot be outdone in generosity, he wishes to give us everything that we need. Um, Everything that we need, with the qualification on that statement, in order to become the person that he created us to become. But we need to ask, and we need to try to get out of the way when he is acting in our lives. I think it was last episode maybe that we were talking about treating God like a
Genie.
or like a vending machine. I know that I've been guilty of that more than one time, where you just have like your laundry list of things that your wants or
Your needs.
but it's like, what do we need really versus what do we want? It's very different. So we have a God who is our Father, who is a giver of good gifts. So it comes back to that trust too. If we trust that God is going to give us what we need in order to become who we need to become, then we should just like have open hands to receive it, right?
Correct. And I think the being full part, coming back to the reservoir, is that for us as fathers and as husbands, there is no greater gift you can give to your family than for them to see you full of those graces and joy. Which again is an area that I struggle with, the joy part, and because I get very impatient. But definitely the fullness of joy, and because we reflect God to our kids. And we've talked about it, right? What kind of like dad you want to be, and you don't want your kids to be afraid of you or be like, oh, my dad was this and was that. I want my kids to remember me like, man, my dad like taught me how to pray. My dad was like always like praying, took us to mass, took us to confession. I want those things to be the ones that rise up to the surface. I want that fullness that gets recognized, instead of like, geez, man, I don't know if I can talk to my dad because he's like always like in a bad mood. Always has a face like he's like smelling something weird, and the fullness is definitely rooted in the sacraments, constant confession, getting like good spiritual director, the Eucharist, going to adoration, praying the rosary, arming yourself for the good fight. There's a lot of things, and I think at our house, what we've done is like we've just like surrounded ourselves with books, and good books, not just like Catholic themed or good literature, all around, to make sure that there's truth, goodness, and beauty abounding in the house, like on a daily basis. And that's a constant conversation. But yeah, the fullness is definitely something that we all can, as men, strive to get better at. Because if something's worth doing, I think you can find time to do it. And for sure, I've not made the best use of this working from home thing, as I could have.
I mean, yeah, but we begin again.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing on that comment that you mentioned about surrounding yourself with good books and the classics, I saw this some guy on Twitter was saying, bad news, we are seriously screwing things up for the next generation. Good news, this new wave of homeschoolers and classical school kids seem like they can fix anything.
Mm-hmm.
I had a good laugh about that one, mainly because it's true.
Yeah.
But I also think that there has to be like a healthy balance between you can live in both extremes. Like you can be very self-serving and making it about you and all the things that you need, and trying to like put yourself before the needs of others. Or you can also go like the martyr route and always being the one that is mortifying the flesh and whatnot. Both extremes have their pros and cons. I think that a healthy balance between asceticism and taking care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, like there's only one of you. And I think that the best example that I saw of this is like my dad was always thinking about us first, and he didn't take good care of himself to the point where we were like, Dad, you need new pants and like new shoes, like buy yourself some clothes. That forgetting about yourself, it's good to a certain extent, but we also need to know ourselves and know like this is the needs that I have. Like I have told Deanna, like, you know what, on the weekends I would like to take 1 or 2 hours to myself to just go drink a coffee and do whatever else I want to do, like work on the podcast or whatever.
Read or whatever. Read or whatever.
Yeah, just to have that time for myself, just like she has time for herself, or like we go to Chase Field and go to batting practice or whatever time with guys as well. Recognizing those needs is not a bad thing. It's not a selfish thing. It's about the balance, right? I don't know. I think that it is a positive thing to be able to recognize those things and not just white knuckle it.
I agree.
Anyways, last point that I have from not trying to be more generous than God. God is deeply in love with us, and He wants us to love Him back. And I know sometimes it is very difficult for us men to think of ourselves in terms of like the bride. This image of like, we know that Jesus is the bridegroom and the church is the bride. So I think that once I got married, I have been able to grasp this concept a little bit better. The most intimate love possible is mentioned in the quote or the beginning when I was talking about the Song of Songs. This human love that I have for my wife, I know she loves me, but the love of God for me or for her doesn't even come close, right? So even though our human experience, this is going to be like kind of like the top of how we are going to experience love or being loved. God's love is reckless, and it's way bigger than that we can even imagine. It will make your head spin. How much God loves us, how recklessly He loves us. It's kind of incomprehensible how big God's love for us.
Well, hence the Song of Songs.
Right.
Because Solomon had to put it into words, and that's what came out. That's just like how much He wants to be with us.
Yeah.
To that extreme. So if you read it from that perspective, dude, you feel so special. And you don't distort it like many people do. And, you feel like, dude, yes, yes, I do want to be loved like that.
Have you ever had an experience of like feeling loved by God?
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Those are kind of like every once in a while, though. I'll just be sitting at mass, and all of a sudden, like a little tear starts rolling down. Yeah, it's like, what's going on? Like, nothing. I'm fine. I'm perfectly
Got
fine.
dirt in my eye.
Right. I got a little love coming out of my tear ducts. But definitely something to ponder, something to take to prayer, to contemplate on it. You know, just don't be afraid to give. I guess it's one of the last things that I would say, that sometimes we don't give because we are afraid that we let go is not going to come back. Like if it is a sum zero game, then what I give, I'm not going to get back. But it says in the gospel, right? Whatever you will get your reward sevenfold. Like good measure, packed full to the brim. And I guess we can connect that to the reservoir, right? Like you're gonna have your fill.
To the brim.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to first ask to get that full measure, well packed and overflowing, in order for you to be able to pour out from what your cup overflows to others, to the world.
And the most beautiful image of pouring out is Jesus on the cross.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I don't remember who was it said that it could have a single drop of his blood would have been enough to redeem the whole world. Yet he emptied himself. Everything that he had, he gave. Woof.
That's deep.
That's deep, man. Yeah. Look at God.
Look at God. We're going to change the name of this podcast to Look at God.
Well, while we try to change the name to the podcast, we want to thank you for listening to this episode of Barbatus Catholic Podcast, the show where three Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. If you like the podcast or got something out of it, please share it with your friends and family. It would really help us. You can subscribe, like, comment, rate, and review if you haven't. If you're feeling extra generous, you can buy us some coffee. If you go to buymeacoffee.com/Barbatus and follow the instructions, you can caffeinate us. And if you buy us a coffee, you automatically get a shout out in one of our episodes. And if you don't like the podcast, well, just keep it to yourself and let others make their own mistakes.
Buy somebody else coffee. Then.
Buy somebody else coffee. Buy yourself some coffee, I guess. You can find the show notes for this episode at barbatuscatholicpodcast.com. And on social media, we are on Instagram at Barbatus Catholic Podcast. And bless us, Alanis Casey.
Pray for us.
Until the next time.